The workshops to provide volunteer fire department chiefs, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, and animal control officers an opportunity to provide information about their services. And Tim, we'll let you get us started.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think tonight's just going to be a couple presentations quick early, just to kind of roll you through the agenda item and go through the materials with you. I think it's going to start with Fran, our EMS director and counsel, and then it's going to go to Kurt Hindle, who is with the fire department, and then Mr. McDermott's going to say a few words, and I think that then you're going to open it up to whoever else and who's presenting. I think Chief Russell's got a PowerPoint, so we'll just go in that particular order and then open it up to the board, if that's okay.
Okay, come on, Fran, and then we'll get Kurt or Scott, whichever.
Well, the first thing I wanted to do was share a piece of good news with you. The ambulance service has completed its 17th straight no-deficit inspection by the state of Florida yesterday, which I think is some kind of record, which means my folks are doing an absolutely incredibly wonderful job, and especially my supervisor, Mr. Walters, who oversees them. Anyhow, who and what we are and where we fit with everybody else. I did a survey across all of the counties that are around us, plus a couple of other counties that are the same size as we are in the state of Florida that are rural, which gave me 12 small counties. Of those, 8 of them are third service with Florida County Commissioners, just like we are. 3 of them are combined EMS and fire, and 1 of them is hospital-based. The call volume for our ambulance service is around 3,800 calls a year, and that puts us kind of in the middle. Gaston County has the most at 5,000 something, but most of theirs is made up with inter-hospital, inter-facility transports. And it's a nice thing if you have a hospital in your county. We're one of 3 in this region that does not have a hospital, which means we have to transport. And what is good for them is they get all that Medicare, Medicaid money for the transports between those facilities, which unfortunately we can't do. There are many staffing options that you have available. We are doing what is called 24/48, which means you're on 24 hours, you're off 48. And the problem with staffing is that you have this baseline that you have to meet. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. And we do this with 18 people. If you drop to 12-hour shifts, by pure logic, you have to double that. That's 36 people. If you drop down to 8 hours, which would make a 40-hour week, you're going to have 3 shifts, which is like 54 people. Plus people for the weekend. And then there are some oddball scheduling things that can reduce the numbers. The problem with them is they run, Leon County is one of them, they run this bunch of days and a couple of days off, then a few days on, then a few days off. And the problem is that everyone in this region except Leon runs 24/48. Therefore, the people on my staff that need to work a second job can't work that kind of scheduling because it would prohibit them from doing their second employment. I wouldn't mind being able to pay them enough that they didn't have to do the second employment, but I think that's not possible. As far as cost savings, we've been very proactive. We have negotiated with the vendors that we buy supplies from and have gotten some significant reductions in prices. I actually managed to talk our major vendors into allowing us to tack on to the pricing that Leon County gets, with a little help from Leon County. Because they buy in such bulk, they get tremendously better pricing than we can with the amounts that we order. We also did an analysis of our staff scheduling, and we moved to the 24/48 hours without some of the oddball shifts that I used to have. And we have realized $100,000 in savings, which we have already returned to the county. It's already yours. When we went to our new ambulances, we went to them for several reasons. One of them was they don't require a thing called an air ride, which was constantly breaking. And most of the repairs that you can look back and say, good gracious, these things are taking a lot of maintenance. It was because our bumpy roads would puncture these airbags, which held the back end of the back of the ambulance up, and it was like metal doing metal, and we couldn't take patients, and we were constantly having to replace these bags. And we've worked our way at least halfway out of the airbag system. The other reason we went to them that we're very happy with is we have a 50% reduction in the use of fuel. They go twice as far in the same tank of gas. Also, we have installed, which I'm sure Ms. Hartz will like, some energy-saving devices like the little regulators on the hot water heaters and the things that can automatically turn the lights off behind you just in case you run out on a call. As far as our collections, across all these counties, 8 of the counties outsource them with some collection agency, which of course charges them money for the privilege of doing that. There is one that is hospital-based, and it's hard to compare their collections because their collection is part of the hospital bill, and therefore it's not a separate entity, and they also get paid under Medicare A instead of Medicare B because it's a hospital. And it's not fair, but they get paid more because they're based within a hospital than we can get paid. And 3 of the services are self-billed. Wakulla is self-billed. And in the comparisons, I'm very glad to say that the highest percentage of collection, this is after the Medicare and Medicaid write-offs. I don't know if you realize it, but Medicaid and Medicare tell you what you can bill, and the rest of it you just have to write off. And if you don't choose to do it their way, you can't bill for the parts you can get. So after the Medicaid and Medicare write-offs, we collect 65% of what is billed. And that is the highest rate of any place in these 12 counties. The others are kind of clumped around 62-63%. Now our EMS budget is listed on the books as $1,878,140. That is not exactly the true picture. We collect, well, I annualized where Shirley is with her collections right now, and we should, by the end of this year, have collected $805,383, which is a significant amount. Plus we have the staffing changes, which is another $100,000, which is back into the kitty, which actually makes it $905,383. So if you look at that, we're really running less than what the budget actually looks like, because we have put this money back into the general revenue. It is not anything that we keep any part of. It goes straight back to the county, and it is in your hands. It belongs to you.
You said it's collected to date, Frank? Collected to date?
Collected to date. Well, I annualized it from what she had collected.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make it something that would compare well. We also have what is an increase in the budget in terms of the number of grants that are brought in, which run, I forgot that piece of paper that had grants on it, but it runs in the neighborhood of $59,000, $60,000 in grant monies that came in, which would actually, if you looked at it that way, make our budget more like $1,945,900 something. And of course, those grants are the means by which we're able to do a lot of the improvements that are needed. Get equipment. The most recent equipment that we got was the new monitor defibrillators, which 57, 67, I don't remember the numbers that were on that other sheet of paper, that did not have to be put out by the county. Anyhow, when I took all of the things that we have done, I wanted you to know that the bottom line is that I'm actually running your ambulance service for $694,619. And I think that is about as low as you're going to get anybody. And I'm not sure if in other people's calculations they are considering giving that money that is collected from the fees back to y'all. So I just wanted you to know that that is your money. Are there any questions that you might have for me?
You mentioned a figure. Y'all managed to cut how much out of this year's budget to return back to us?
On the overtime was $100,000 because when we went to the 24/48 scheduling instead of the other kind of scheduling that we were doing, that was the cost savings.
So you're anticipating, I don't know if it's happened already, but a return of $100,000 to go back to the general revenue.
We have already returned it to Mr.
Okay.
Harden.
Yeah,
About a
thank you very
month
much.
ago,
We appreciate
maybe.
y'all's efforts to help save money for the county.
Yeah, that also doesn't count all the times that we need a fourth truck in place. 18% of the time you do not have an ambulance in this county because they're on their way to the hospitals. And I can assure you that, let's see, I started here in 1974. And for the entire time that I have worked for Wakulla County as a volunteer and as a paid person and as an administrator, I get called when there's a fourth call. And I have always gone out, and it's never cost you a penny because I'm on salary. And that's just for myself, that's probably 40 or 50 calls per year. And then when Mr. Walters is working, he goes out. He has come in and covered shifts that cost you nothing. And Mr. McDermott has come in all the way from his home and covered shifts. I don't know why it happens this way, but they don't spread the calls out across the day evenly. They kind of clump together. It makes sense if they go to work time and to come back from work time because you have more people stirring around. But the general medical illnesses, they just happen that way. And so we exceed the capacity of this ambulance service on a regular basis, except for the fact that you have a paramedic that can respond at the drop of a hat.
How many ambulances, I know there was a study done recently, how many ambulances should we be running? I know we're running 3 and sometimes you do the 4th, but I think we're supposed to be running...
Well, we run 3 because we don't have the money for a 4th, but we need a 4th.
And then there was a study that indicated that we should be having more than that, or no?
The 4th would bring us back up to an even, but I'd still get called out some.
Okay. And do you know, there was a study that indicated that, correct? Or am I just remembering something wrong?
We did a study to find out where we were in numbers, how they were clumped together, what was the feasibility of trying to change anything within our system itself. But the bottom line is when there's a call, we have no choice but to go. It's written in statute. You call, we haul. You know, it's what it is. It doesn't matter if the person has a stumped toe or if they're a cardiac arrest. They get equal treatment under the law to go to the hospital. And I have had people that jumped out of my ambulance at the hospital and walked down the street with their friends because they wanted to go shopping, and there's absolutely nothing legally that we can do about that.
Is that state or federal law? Federal?
It's state statute.
State statute.
I'm not sure what the original intent was, but I'm sure it was to prevent people who might be sleepy at 3 o'clock in the morning from saying, well, I really don't want to take this person. You know, I don't know. But it is a protection to the citizens that they have the guarantee that if they need emergency health care, we're here.
Thank you, Fran.
Lynn?
And what is the response time average?
Well, except for Smith Creek, which is just a difficult area to get to. We are there generally within 4 to 7 minutes. One of the reasons that I originally started the first responder program about 1975 was the idea that we could get someone with some medical training with oxygen that could get there because they were close to their neighbors and do
You said 4 to 7, not 47.
4 to 7.
That's to have a first responder there, not
Yeah, to have a
response time in
first
terms
responder
of an
there.
ambulance.
But it's a first line
Right.
of help for the patients.
And the response time for the ambulance to get to the scene on average, what is that? Do you know?
That's that 4 to 7. It depends on what part it is. It's hard to tell you really, because if the truck that's in MedArt goes to the hospital and Crawfordville has to go down, we're 6 to 7 minutes away from where the MedArt station is. So if it's in Panacea or Ocklackney, it's going to be an even longer response. And then if the Crawfordville truck is out and they have to come from the Woodville highway side, it's going to be a long ride, or the other way around, if Woodville's out and Crawfordville's out, and where the ambulance is out 18% of the time.
And to go up to a fourth ambulance, how would that affect your staffing now? How much you would have to go from 18 to...
We would have to add an additional shift, and we have 6 people per shift.
Okay.
By law, you have to have a paramedic and an EMT minimum on each truck. But we realize that this isn't probably an economical, feasible time to do that. But we will continue to cover the gap for you, and I have faith in this country. We'll turn the budget around one of these days.
Anything else? I have one question for you. The time that you spend at the hospital on a run. What's the average? Once you make the run to the hospital, how long before you can put
I
that
would
patient out
say
and come back?
if everything went the way it's supposed to, probably 6 or 7, 8 minutes. But what your problem is that sometimes there are several ambulances that are arriving at the same time. They have limited nursing staff. They also have limited rooms. Sometimes all of the beds they have in the hallway already have people on them. So there have been times that we've had to be there 15, 20 minutes just because they had to find some place or move someone so that we would have a place to move our person over to. So it varies according to how busy the hospital is. And that counts for both hospitals.
Okay. Anything else?
You're going to stay, right, for questions later?
If you want me to, Miss Arts, I'll stay till the cows come home.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Unless I get a
Todd,
call.
are You next, or? Mr.
Yes, please. Thank you, Commissioner. Fran actually made me think of something, so I want to mention it now. 18% of the time that we don't have an ambulance in the county, 100% of that time we have a fire truck here with 2 trained EMTs on that truck that respond. 100% of the time there's not an ambulance in this county. I just kind of thought it was important to point that out. Not, to think that we have no medical personnel here or something like that is just not accurate. Okay, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of history. I mean, the reality is this commission knows. I mean, you know what our history is in the fire department and that sort of stuff. So we met, and when I say we, I mean the paid officers and all of Wakulla and their officers, their battalion officers have met and come up with this budget. And I'm going to stand here and I'm going to hand you the hard issue. I'm going to hand you the hard numbers. The reality is our budget was cut a few years ago and cut our budget by almost 40%. People argue that number, but the reality is when the salaries were moved in and we also took the MSBU cut in dollars, it essentially took our operating budget and reduced it by almost 40%. So that's where we stand today. So we're going to go straight into some of these numbers. Bunker gear, radio narrowbanding, and general equipment replacement. This is something that is essentially mandated by us. Fran mentioned state statute. We also fall under state statute. And in doing so, we have a requirement to basically conform. Literally now, we're under investigation by the state, which some of you may know. Mr. Charlie Brush come in after the death of our Captain Richard Ray and basically found a bunch of our deficiencies and pointed them out and essentially said that we have to find a new standard. Basically, what I'm telling you now is that standard. This is where we live. We have to have reserve sets of bunker gears for staff to avoid, bloodborne pathogens and extended carcinogen exposures. The reality of it is we don't have extra sets of bunker gear right now. We run on the ragged edge. This is something where today our paid staff, our volunteers, they don't have extra bunker gear they can go put their hands on. A set of bunker gear is somewhere in the $1,500 range. That's an expensive cost. Does every firefighter need a reserve set of bunker gear? Of course not. But do we need sets where they can, in one of these fires or something like that, go get a replacement set so we can still function as a fire department? Of course they do. And these are the costs that we haven't, these are the things that we haven't done this year. So understand, these are things that we knew had been pointed out to us by the state and that we've basically not done because we can't afford to do so. That we have bunker gear that should be out of service. It's basically not serviceable. It has holes in it. Of course, there are standards there. Radio replacement. The government has mandated that all of our public safety agencies, whether it be sheriff's department, ambulance, fire, whoever, are going to go to a narrowband radio system. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're now responsible for spending to become compliant. And this is, again, this year we have purchased some radios. We did find some money in the budget to purchase some radios that we had to replace because of shortfall. But we don't have what it takes there to actually become compliant. At the rate we're going, we would be compliant in 10 years as opposed to where we have to be compliant. I think it's next year, fall of next year.
The deadline is 2013, but about 70% of the public safety agencies haven't begun their transition. So we've been trying to get ahead of the curve and not end up in that long supply and demand line for 12.5 kilohertz radio. So it needs to happen now, not 2013 when everybody else is at the trough.
Next thing there, of course, is general equipment replacement. I mean, it just stands to reason. When you fight fire and you drag hose through fire, it gets damaged. It needs to be replaced. Those tools, those appliances. There's an attrition rate in the fire service that, as bad as we hate to admit it, it's high. We damage stuff. That's kind of what the nature of the beast. It's part of the job. Talking about the Bureau of Fire Standards and Training, this is important. This is the one that right now Mr. Brush has sent us letters is following up. I essentially have to sit down, myself and Louis, and we have to write a letter to him beginning of next week explaining why we're not compliant still yet. I hate to oversimplify it, but we've delayed as long as we can delay. At some point, we're going to have to be honest and say, we don't have the money to do it, and we're not going to be able to do it. That's just something we're trying to avoid. So let me talk about the things that we can't do right now. Annual SCBA, our annual SCBA stuff. We have to test them, we have to maintain them, we have to replace them, we have to do fit tests on every person that is authorized to go into a structure fire. So all of our volunteers that are trained, all of our paid staff that are trained, we have to do that. And then we have to do an annual refresher training every year for all those same people. We're not doing that right now. We're not.
We have that. Excuse me, ran the wastewater plant, anybody got gas exploring around. Of course, you have to have SCBAs also, and you may want to talk to him, though. He may have people on, because I have people trained over there on SCBAs, and we did these trainings. But anyway, just
right.
Thought.
No, agreed. It's any ideal age atmosphere that basically, if you qualify under the new standard, and the state has a specific standard for the fire department, you have to be firefighter 1 in order to wear an SCBA. So all this new training that we're doing, getting our firefighters compliant, as soon as we do that, then we add all this additional training and additional cost. Air compressor, air quality test, we have to do that every single year. Can it be avoided? Actually, it has to be done twice a year. Volunteer minimum training, we know, y'all remember when Mr. Brush come in here and spoke to the commission and essentially said that we had a serious shortfall, that we had essentially missed an opportunity where we had an opportunity to train our people up, and we were behind the curve. Well, we're digging our way out of that hole, but there's a cost with that. It costs overtime to teach classes, to do those things. Now, the reality of it is the state has just mandated a different training program. We can now do it online, and it has reduced our overtime cost, and will continue to reduce our overtime cost. We won't have to have as many man-hours hands-on. But I can tell you now, firefighting and fire department business is not learned in a book. It's just not. Information is in that book, but how to put that information into action and do a good job out on the streets is done in person, by hand. You have to put your hands on it. So understand that that's not 100% cure to our problem. Hazmat training refresher for all personnel, biannual, we have to do that every single year now, and that's one of the things that Mr. Brush has said that we're going to do. Station repair and construction. There are multiple, we've had our battalion chiefs come in from the volunteer stations, and they've identified a lot of station safety problems that exist right now. And this is something that we can't ignore. They've been identified. Once a safety issue is identified, then we have a duty to act on it. And honestly, we don't have the dollars to act. So we have the duty to, we know it exists, but we don't have the dollars to. So this is where we're at. I don't know how where y'all are of the new station construction in Wakulla Gardens. It's something that's been on the minds, and it's basically been discussed in our fire department for years. Wakulla Gardens had a huge building boom when we were building homes, and there's however many residents out there that are essentially paying double plus what they should be paying for insurance rates. And the reason they are is because we don't have a fire station within 5 miles of that location. So every resident that lives in that area there is paying at least twice as much insurance as possible, as they should be. I shouldn't say as possible, as should be. I called today just because I'm getting insurance quotes on my house, and I pay $1,100 a year on my insurance in my house. If I were to change and go to the highest ISO rating, which they are in Wakulla Gardens, my insurance rate goes from $1,100 to $2,600 a year. That's how much difference it is in these people's insurance costs. So, I mean, it's very difficult to ask somebody to pay an extra $20, $30 a year for an MSBU, but I would much rather ask for that $20, $30 than tell them that they're going to spend an extra $1,000 this year in cost for their insurance on their home. So it does have a direct reflection. Truck depreciation schedule. To be honest with you, this is one that even I didn't notice and I didn't see, and it struck me. I didn't realize we were in this poor shape. We have 30 fire units in this county right now. So from every volunteer station, every unit that is maintained by the fire department, we have 30 of those. That's actually 3 units short of what our ISO agreements are. And you ask yourself, okay, what's an ISO agreement? ISO comes in and checks Station 8 Crawfordville and says, okay, we want to assess what your value is as a fire department. They come in and assign a number. Well, they do that based on trucks and people and equipment and all those things. For the current ISO ratings that we have right now, there are 3 trucks that ISO thinks we have in this county that we don't. They don't exist. So the reality is ISO could come in, and this exact same thing I was talking about in Wakulla Gardens, they could come into those stations, which is 2 and 8. Think about the number of people that Station 2, which is Wakulla Station, and Station 8, think about the number of homes that they cover, and they could come in there and double those people's insurance costs, only because we can't afford to replace the units that are basically out of service. Out of those 30 fire units, 15 of them right now are currently outside of a life expectancy. Life expectancy for a fire truck is, given the type of truck it is, for an engine it's 15 years. For a truck it's 25 years. For a regular medium duty truck it's 10 years. If you take those numbers, that's what they say it should last in a fire department, even with our rotation, the way we do things, even trying to stretch them and use them as long as we can. And I'm going to tell you, we do good. We maintain our trucks as best we can, but the reality of it is eventually the maintenance cost overcomes what it should be costing us. At some point we're spending good money after bad. We should be replacing those trucks. And out of the 30 that we have right now, 15 of those trucks are currently out of date today. One of those trucks is 20 years overdue. It's 20 years past its service life. I mean, and that's huge. That truck could fail on the way to a call today. It should be failing on the way to a call today. But luckily, our maintenance and the way we stay after things has kept us from that point. If that truck were to fail, if there was an engine today that fails, we'd have no reserve units to put in its place. We have nothing to back it up. There is no backup in this county at all for the fire service. Not one. So if a truck fails, all we're doing is stealing from that same ISO. We basically have to move a truck from another station, and then they have no protection. These are some of the problems. These are some of the reasons that we're going to be asking for the money that we asked for. All right. Here's the hard sell, and as bad as I hate to stand here and ask this, I didn't make these numbers up. These are not my numbers. These are the numbers that were discussed between, myself, Chief LaMarche, and the chiefs of the association. These are the numbers that come directly out of the needs that we have to cover. To be fully funded, the MSBU rate would be $97.50 for each residential unit. It'd be 8 cents commercial, and it'd be 23 cents per vacant land. Although we understand where we're at, we understand the current economic crisis that we're in. We know that we have no right to come in here and ask the citizens to pay those kind of dollars. We know that. We understand it completely. But in order for us to stay legal and compliant and to do the things that we have to do, we're not talking about any extra. There's no fluff in this thing at all. We have to be at the $85 rate for residential. We have to be at 7 cents per square foot commercial, and we have to be at 20 cents for vacant land. We have to. Those are the minimum dollars. That's what it's going to take for us to function and to stay compliant and to maintain service. It's also the recommendation that over the next 3 years that we look at it and we reassess this over the next budget years. The reality is to be compliant is the minimum. That means no growth. That means adding no extra trucks. That means adding no replacement vehicles. I mean, so that is just to maintain where we're at. So amongst all of us, that's where we're at. I want to talk just briefly about some of the things we're trying to do to save costs. I mean, we know that we also see and feel the pinch. So this is what we're trying to do. We've implemented a no idling policy. Essentially what that means is if we go to a call and it's a medical call, that a truck doesn't sit there and idle. We'll turn that truck off. For us, sitting at someone's home, we can turn that truck off, save fuel, reduce emissions, all those good things. You know, and that's what we've implemented, and it's being done throughout the county, volunteer and paid alike. In the paid side of it, we've reduced we've changed the way we respond to medical calls. If we're called to a medical call, we used to have both firefighters on an engine go out to a medical call. We no longer do that. We now take a fire SUV, which of course is your regular pickup or whatever. We'll use that vehicle. It's a huge reduction in fuel usage, and we only send one firefighter out. So basically what we've done is we've tried to do that same thing again, reduce our fuel, reduce the way, and honestly reduce our impact on roads and all those things, the infrastructure. You know, a 50,000-pound fire truck going down a two-rut dirt road is going to do damage every single time, where this light SUV, of course, is not. We're going to have less of an impact, and that's what we're trying to do. We've also implemented that personnel, when are canceled en route, if they're canceled by a trained person, if they're canceled by trained personnel, and I have to emphasize trained because that's Sheriff's Department, ambulance service, first responders. That's people that we know have qualified training that can make those decisions. When we're canceled by those people, then we return the quarters. Now, if a homeowner is there and says, well, the fire's out now, everything's good, I can't tell you how many times we've got there and found that the fire is out. The one that they can see, it's the one that's in the walls or in the ceiling or that sort of stuff that they can't see that it's not out. So we don't cancel on a homeowner's word simply because it takes us 1 minute to get there, run in, say, yep, you're right, thank you, you have a good day. So all the battalion and paid stations have agreed to turn off electrical appliances. This is, I hate to say it, but this was a simple decision, you know. And it's not like we had air conditioners running and that sort of stuff, but, you know, a light gets left on, or the truck bay, in the truck bay, we leave the floodlight on outside. Well, it is convenient, it's great, and it's all those things, but we felt that we could do our part by saving, so, you know, we've implemented all those things. We no longer have any extra lights, any extra... So, during this process, we've had a lot of discussion, and in that discussion, we look for ways that we could improve our service while taking the county's dollars that are being spent on our services and make them more valuable. And one of the problems that we have is if there's a call today, now, and we respond to fire truck to a call, automatically there's a building burning in Panacea, we automatically send a fire truck, we automatically send an ambulance because of injuries, we automatically tone volunteers. If we show up on that scene and volunteers are unable to respond, we can't effectively do a fire attack. We can't effectively go in there and do the thing that we promised the citizens we could do. We can't go in there and make every attempt at saving their family and their property and those sort of things. So we looked at that and said, how can we overcome some of that? Well, there are some non-fire committal jobs on a fire scene. A safety officer, a rehab officer, people that are basically walking around looking to see if things are changing. Is the roof getting soft? So we've talked about a lot of these things, and what we're going to do in the future is we're going to look at using those EMS personnel to fill those roles. So they're already assigned to the scene for injuries or what. They've already spent the fuel. They've already drove to the scene. They are sitting on the scene rather than say, okay, we don't need you, cancel and go back to the station. Why not use those personnel to actually fill those non-essential fire roles and basically freeze up our volunteers that are there that are certified to go in and do that attack. And so we're looking at those. It's a way to... we don't save money by doing that, but we definitely use the dollars that we are getting more efficiently by doing it. And honestly, we are saving the taxpayers. A faster fire attack always means less damage, always. So this is some of the things that we're looking at doing, and that's pretty much where I'm at. Any questions?
This 9750, that was based on that MSBU study?
Yes, sir. All those figures coming straight off the MSBU study. And 9750 still falls short of where our budget was prior to the cuts from last year. And it's still less than what those dollars would add up to be.
And the 9750 is not the full amount the MSBU study.
No, the MSBU study recommended.
That was like 197 was the top part of the assessment down to 0.
So it's still less than half. You're just using the MSBU study as the number allocations.
Yeah, the MSBU study was simply being used as a way to determine what those amount collected would equal in dollars and revenue dollars.
I have a question about the recommended initial rate. That commercial of 0.7 or 0.07, is 85 the highest residential at that commercial rate?
Real close to it.
Okay, so we really couldn't hold commercial at that level and go up to 90 or something like that.
It goes up 1 cent at the 85 mark. It goes up to 8 cents at the 97 mark. I believe the threshold is right around the 87 and a half, 88 mark before it bumps up to the
They are indexed to each other, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, wait a second. What you said it goes up to 85? Ideally, we want to be at where it would be the high end of the commercial and the...
Right.
Okay.
That's the number that they chose. They picked off their needs.
I understand that.
We then went to the assessment, tried to determine what rate would generate the revenue with the payback and the, for the government properties, but to try to get that revenue to match. And what we did was proportion it out to where it got to 85 was what? Did we say 85 or 8750? But that was the top side of that 1 cent spectrum for the commercial property.
Okay.
So if we go very much further, I think it's at about 87, it jumps to the next cent.
Then to 8 cents
And
for
that
commercial.
97.50 is still within that 8 cent range.
Okay. Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Oh.
You can ask. I'll wait till you're done.
That was a very good presentation, and it sounds like you are doing a number of things to reduce costs. I'm also I've been concerned for a long time about what all the needs are. I mean, you just go into the stations and they all need to be fixed up. And, the equipment and all of that other stuff too. The station the new station that's needed at Wakulla Gardens, how close are we to having enough saved up in impact fees for that? Because that would be the major source right now. Are you then going to have to take that out of MSBU?
No, ma'am. The plan was to do it strictly out of MSBU. Basically, it would be a budgeted item. So, of course, we wouldn't be able to do it in a single year's revenues. But what we would do is take whatever, let's make it a round number, $100,000 generated in this year's MSBU budget, and we would put that in an account. So next year, when we get the second $100,000 draw or whatever it may be, then we could afford to actually build that station then. But it's not just building a station. Understand, that's only
Staffing
part of
and
the
all.
cost. Then it's making sure that we have the volunteers there to man that station. Then it's also having the extra equipment. Even if we could go today and drop that station there and cure that problem, we have no equipment to put in it. We have no personnel to put in it. So it's a multitude of problems.
I understand that, but let's say focus on the station for a second. What's the total estimated cost to build a new station?
To do it for bare minimum, you have to put in a station, you have to put living quarters, you have to put some kind of kitchen quarters, you have to put restrooms. It can't simply be a building that houses trucks. So it has to be all that. And our best guess, without going out and asking and getting estimates and that sort of stuff, was probably in the $200,000 range. And that doesn't include property. So we have to figure
purchasing
out
land,
property. Yes, ma'am.
right.
Either we have to find it donated or, do something.
We had 200 budgeted in the previous CIP plans prior to this last budget year cut for that station.
And how much is saved up so far for it? We do have impact fee money saved up for it, don't we?
I think the fire impact fee was really fairly new before it was stopped, so I don't think it collected very much at all.
But
So
some of the 1 cent sales tax money could be used for it too.
Sure, you could use that.
mean,
There's
it-
also, I know that CDBG, if we could get one of their grants, I know that they fund building fire stations. That was something that we looked at too, so.
I think the point is, Kurt, is there's money where Lynn's going. Is there are some money pots that we may be able to find to build this thing that you don't have to take it out of the MSBU. I still think we ought to go to that MSBU level because we promised y'all were going to have a tough year this year, but that we were going to help you in the coming year, and I think the board's determined to do that some way. But as far as property, we got a commissioner who might want to donate some land, and we got some seed money in some of those funds that we can probably build it with.
Well, we also own some land in Wakulla Gardens.
So,
The county has some.
y'all, I guess what we're saying is y'all probably need to get more aggressive at getting the design and plan for this building. I think we maybe can be able to do that sooner than later.
No, absolutely. I know that the $85 rate essentially doesn't have any figures in it for that building or the land. So, it's just justification for the whole. Yes, sir.
I apologize. The question I wanted to ask is, you have two different numbers on here, the 97 and the 85 and the fees that go with it. There doesn't actually say, you say to be fully funded, we need this, however extending the climate, we need this, and it doesn't explain what the difference would be for y'all. Like, what are you sacrificing by going with the second set of numbers versus going with the first set of numbers?
The sacrifice would essentially include, the building fund would essentially be non-existent. We wouldn't be putting money back into the buildings, doing any of that kind of infrastructure. It would still include the legal issues that we have to cover. It does include the air packs. It does include the legal issues that we have to do for the state. And it does include a very small amount for truck replacement because we cannot get by on trucks the way they are right now.
So the 85 will help you start accruing, you'll start building a reserve again.
It will. It's going to take some years. We're not talking about this year, but yes, it will take some time.
And is the difference between the 85 and the 97 mainly reserve? Because you'll just be putting more in reserve towards building and trucks if we gave you 90, if you were allocated, if we went implemented.
It wouldn't necessarily be reserved, but yeah, it would basically fix the infrastructure figures that we have right now.
But the 85 covers, mainly is going to cover current cost.
Yes, sir.
How many dollars, what is the difference in dollars between the 61 and the 85? How many dollars does that generate?
The 61 and the 85. The 85 figure, and I don't have it right.
We can send those numbers to you, Commissioner. I'm sorry we don't have them here, but I want to say it's about a $400,000 net revenue difference-ish.
The 97 basically puts us at 1.4 million, thereabouts. 1 high 3 is basically where it's at, where of course the 85 is nowhere near that.
Which is where it was before last year when we made the cuts. It was right around 1.4,
Gets us back to status quo.
including the general revenue and the MSBU dollars. And the 85, if you'll allow me, really, these numbers all came from the VFD chiefs. And the 85, and I'm just going to speak for them for just a sec if they'll give me, is frankly a lowball figure to help get to where we need to be, where they need to be solvent. It's a means to get one step toward the end through the political process, if that makes sense. They need to go to 97.50 this year, but 85 is where they're willing. That's their sacrifice to join the whole.
That's
that
the
makes
minimum,
sense.
y'all.
So the 9750 generates 1.4, or the 85 generates 1.4?
9750 is 1383 or some. Those are close to the numbers. It's not quite 1.4, but it's very close.
So if we double that, we could pay for the ambulance department too.
Still let me go get my laptop.
I have the rates. Are you looking for the rate scenarios?
Yes, sir.
I can pull them up.
The good thing is that, we're in that, Randy mentioned it a while ago,
What are we looking for?
racing. we've just been determined to be a part of now, allows us to be a little more innovative with the way we can fund things. And one of the things now we can do, we couldn't do before, is maybe we can levy an assessment for both fire and ambulance in one assessment, or two separate assessments, but it'd be on the tax bill, and that's a good thing.
Right.
You know, we can take it out of the general fund and lower the ad valorem taxes an equal amount. But what I'm hearing is that that's the minimum y'all need is $85. It's going to be up to the board to decide what we want to. I mean, at the minimum, we've got to think 85, and really they need 97.50.
And understand, you know, if the board comes back and says 75, we're not going to close the doors to the fire department, but know that we can't operate even to the level that we did it this year. We just can't do it year after year.
I really think people don't like paying taxes, but they don't feel quite so bad paying for a fire truck or an ambulance.
I agree.
You know, the difference between 85 and 97 is $12 for a year. It's $1 a month.
And their ISO ratings. Many people's ISO ratings will go down, or their home insurance. My God, that's a big difference for a lot of people.
And everybody pays this. That's what I like. Everybody pays it.
Well,
Yeah,
this is the best presentation all the years I've been here for the fire department. I mean, y'all did a good job with this, and I appreciate it personally, because
Well, this is what you get when you ask the people with the experience in this county to please step up and give you an opinion. And I would love to take credit for it, but it's certainly not me. It's these volunteer chiefs with all these years of experience. They've been doing this well before any of us were here doing it. So, I mean, if anybody deserves credit, it's them.
Randy, you mentioned everybody pays it. What do you mean by everybody pays it?
Every household pays it, not just the people that have an expensive house. And the people that have lived here 20 years and live in a single-wide trailer pay nothing, no offense. I grew up in a single-wide trailer. Don't take that wrong way, but they're not paying.
like a flat tax.
The mobile home probably is 10 times more susceptible to a fire than a house in the farm, because they use electric heaters, blah, blah, but they're not paying for it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Any more? I know we got.
No. And if it's all right, I think I'll defer my time for Chief Russell. And
Yes, I know Chief Russell.
we're at 15 minutes to 6, and I'd rather cut my time short than Chief Russell's.
Well, we're going to take as much time as we need, and the board wants to give them, but, you know, we want to let any of the fire chiefs who want to talk. Come on, Bill, and give us your presentation.
This is the one, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is.
Commissioners, Wakulla did a unanimous vote to ask your staff to come back with some cost-cutting recommendations to compare to what the sheriff was going to bring you, and we didn't want you to think that made us opposed to the sheriff's study. We just thought that you would want to have more than one thing to look at. We weren't asked to do a study, but we looked to see if there was anywhere that you could save, and we found a little bit. Now, you know that, like Kurt said, salaries are moved to MSBU, and that created basically a 40% cut in your maintenance, truck, and what have you funds. We believe that if there's going to be any cuts made, it's probably going to have to be in how fire and EMS are managed. There isn't any room to cut down at the bottom without cutting service, and you know you don't want to do that. This presentation was presented at the last Wakulla meeting, and Wakulla voted unanimously to present it to y'all. We did a short survey, getting a few facts together, and I want you to know that now the paid staff is part of Wakulla. They have all joined together, and it's working very nicely, which is going to give you our thoughts on how to best serve the citizens. And please consider that there are hundreds of years of experience out here, and much of your fire protection is free. First thing, there's been a lot of rumors that we want to get rid of the paid staff. The paid staff are a necessity. We have to have them. We also feel that the organization put in place by the previous administration does not give the best service possible, and we will offer what the majority of Wakulla considers to be better alternatives. Now, these things came from unanimous votes of Wakulla, and Commissioner Stewart, you know how rare unanimous is in our organization. The survey, that was the first question in it, what does Wakulla want? And by strong fire chief, we need a fire chief that runs the fire service. He doesn't report to anybody else but the county administrator. He runs the fire service. And we put in strong fire EMS chief just to gather facts, not to make any recommendation about combining fire EMS, just to gather facts. 0% of the departments think that things should stay the way they are. The members of Wakulla feel that the system does not work, and we have two workable options. A strong fire chief reporting to the county administrator was a choice of 54% of the fire departments. A strong fire EMS chief reporting to the county administrator was 36% of the fire departments. And 9% was a strong fire chief reporting to whomever. The members of Wakulla feel that the position of the public safety director added an unnecessary level of management, and the funds could be better used elsewhere.
Chief Russell, I apologize, I don't mean to interrupt, just so I know as we're going forward, what level of participation of the survey is, how many,
Every station.
every station, one survey per station?
Yes, the chiefs, they poll their people, and then they set the surveys back.
President, and does that include, I know Wakulla includes every volunteer station, paid stations, the fire staff at St. Mark's Powder?
No, not St. Mark's Powder, but yes, the paid staff,
Okay.
yes, every volunteer station.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, the next question was, what should the firefighter work schedule be? You had a 9% that thought it should stay as it is. 18% thought we should have firefighters in the daytime at two different stations. Daytime at 3 stations, you had 9%. And by far, most thought that 24-48, which is what you have now, full-time coverage, but divide them to 2 stations, Station 5 and Station 8. That was by far the majority. And if you remember back when we got paid staff, the recommendation was to have them more than one place, not just have them in one place.
Where's 5 at, Chief Russell? Is that?
That are. Fire EMS integration, fire EMS cooperation. We feel that there are cost savings to be found in some degree of combining. A full integration would probably save the most, but it's not our decision or our recommendation. Our recommendation is a cooperation that will increase service and save some tax dollars. So like Kurt was talking about. Cooperation would look like this. You have a fire chief. The only person you'd be getting rid of actually is the position of the public safety director, and maybe one admin person, where now you have a billing clerk and you have an administrative assistant as well. At Tri-Sloan, they could share one, and that firefighter that's on duty might have to come and help the chief with fire office work, but that's the only savings that we could actually see. The EMS chief just like it is, the supervisor just like it is, the ambulance crews just like they are. With cooperation, you'd have one fighter 24 hours a day, every day in Crawfordville, one firefighter every day in Mad Art. You'd be looking at maybe $125 of savings with this system. 125,000, yes. You get better fire service because of the ability to deliver more apparatus to the scene of a structure fire. 1 unit from Mad Art, 1 unit from Crawfordville, and a 3rd unit that could be delivered by the EMS unit that will be going to the fire to standby. If it's a structure fire, you're going to have an ambulance there anyway that could bring another fire truck. Not operate the fire truck, but bring it. That would allow more volunteers to go straight to the call and not have to go to the station, get a truck, and then go to the call. You get better EMS service because during extremely busy times, that they have a lot of busy times anymore, a firefighter could respond with a spare ambulance to the call, and the EMS supervisor or the EMS chief meet them there, and then that would be a full-staffed ambulance. So you would have a fourth ambulance in service, possibly a fifth ambulance in service, but that would eliminate all your paid fire help if you had 5 ambulances in service. But if it's a life-saving matter, you would not hesitate to do that. Full integration of services, you could probably save $190,000, but it's not what Wakulla recommends, and it's opposed by EMS staff. In the cooperation, no one would be forced to obtain dual certification, but that would probably be a future job recommendation. Cooperation is the Wakulla recommendation on this thing. In integration, there are limited numbers of people on board at this time to fill dual positions. If this was considered, we would encourage the board to give present employees time to get certifications and to instruct supervisors to work out accommodating schedules. Be a long-term.
Go back, Bill, how long would it take you to proceed to do that? A year? We could maybe, if we started, it could take a year to put it into effect?
Commissioner, they don't have a lot of turnover in EMS, and I know that y'all wouldn't be wanting to lay anybody off, so it'd be hard to say, because I would think that you would try and do it by attrition and by getting more people dual certified going to schools. If we started a year ago, we'd be a lot closer, but I don't think that we would be there yet. But it's something to look at a long term. Anymore, most fire departments, if you're trying to get a job, being a firefighter EMT isn't enough anymore. You got to be a firefighter paramedic, and there's going to be more and more and more of those people out there because people know that's what it's going to take to get a job. This is the other thing that we're asking about is a fire advisory board. We talked about eliminating the position of a public safety director, but the position of fire EMS chief will be a challenging job for anyone. We can't expect anybody to do it alone. We would suggest a board to give direction to the fire rescue service and help them make sound decisions about finance and policy. A board might look like that. You'd have the fire chief on it, and he would have the veto power on the board. He could veto it, but if he vetoed a board decision, then it would go to the full board of Wakulla and probably ask, maybe it's not just a simple majority, but a super majority, and they pass it, then the chief was probably wrong. But I doubt that would very seldom happen. Okay, 2 volunteer chiefs, because many chiefs over 25 years of experience, and you could tap into that experience. I would think a business member, a business community member, because we need to operate more like a business, and a person familiar with county finance, somebody from the clerk's office or O&B, that would be, if you were making long-term financial decisions, maybe even having to finance fire trucks or something, you'd need somebody with a good financial background. Now, this board wouldn't have anything to do with the everyday running of the fire service, and this board wouldn't be tying the fire chief's hands. It would only be involved in major policy decisions about major apparatus purchases, major equipment purchases, or property purchases. There's another reason. If we hire a chief from our present staff, they would need some help because they've never run anything like that. If we hire from the outside, that board could be handed to them because they would have no knowledge of this county. The other question on the little survey was the MSBU rate, and it varied all over because each station quoted their needs is how they thought the rate should go, but it was a consensus of approximately $80, and that was among all the chiefs, all the volunteer chiefs and the paid guys. The reasons for the increase in that were the same things that Kurt Hendel told you. The salaries moved. And we're getting new certified firefighters because it's easier to get it online. People don't have to go to as many structured classes. But if you get more people, you get better service, but it costs you something. You got to equip those people. And as Kurt said, there's new recommendations on equipment, maintenance apparatus, and They aren't going to come shut your doors, they aren't going to come fine you, but if somebody gets hurt, you're going to be in a bad situation. These are the ways that we feel that you can give a little bit better service. It cuts some costs. We think we offer a combined experience level that you shouldn't ignore. Wakulla has sought to bring better cooperation between the volunteer and paid staff and feel that a higher level of cooperation between fire and EMS can only benefit the citizens and help keep costs down. Wakulla is asking that the fire chief be treated as a department head and report directly to the county administrator. This feeling is shared by 91% in our survey. We provide your fire service and ask that you consider our opinion. Wakulla is willing to work and cooperate with any agency that's delivering service to the citizens. We do not refuse to cooperate with EMS or the Sheriff's Office. We do feel that our opinion should be sought and considered when directing the future of your paid staff and volunteers. That's all I have.
I have a question. When you say you'd have 2 units, 1 unit at MedArt and 1 in downtown, what is considered a unit?
You would be running one engine with one person on it out of each station. The one at MedArt could make a decision whether he was going to run an engine or run the aerial truck because it's stored at MedArt. So, and then if the ambulance came from 2, they could bring a tanker or an engine. If the ambulance came from 5, they could make an engine or an aerial truck. It would be.
How many paid people would be on a unit?
One
person.
Right now you have 2 people on 1 unit in Crawfordville. Then you would go to 1 person on a unit in 2 different locations, which just gives you a little bit better coverage. And 1 person on a unit is not a popular idea with firefighters, but volunteers do it every day.
Where are the other paid people? If you got one paid in Crawfordville and 1 paid in MedArt, where are the other paid people?
That's each shift, Commissioner. There's 3 shifts, so that takes.
Per shift. I got
Yes, sir.
Good enough.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brock.
It's my understanding, and I've not been firefighter trained, so I'm just asking questions from what I've heard in the past, that to fight a fire properly, you want to have the option to be able to go inside the fire. To do that, you need 2 inside, 2 outside.
That is the safety rule, and the only exception is like it is just right in the incipient stage, you break the rule. It's a rule that's broke every day all over the country because firefighters go and put out fires, but it's what you're supposed to have 2 in and 2 out, yes.
And I understand that it's a rule that's occasionally broken, and I'm just, as we're trying to set policy, I want to make sure we're not setting policy where we're
not setting policy on that, right?
broken. So do you have I just want to make sure I understand, right now we have 2 paid firefighters together so that they can go to the fire together, and as soon as volunteers or if EMS gets there, there'll be 2 outside, and then those 2 can go inside.
You'll still have 2 paid firefighters going. They'll be coming from different places, but they'll be going. In other words, if your fire's in Panacea, you're going to have 1 person there quicker than you would have had because he's coming from MedArt. You're going to have 2 people there in the same time that you would have had 2 people anyway.
So instead of...
Now, if you're in Crawfordville, it cuts back the other way. You would have had 2 immediately, and you're going to have 1 and 1.
And currently, when they leave from Crawfordville, do they take 1 truck or 2 trucks?
If they run out of Crawfordville, they take 1 truck on fires.
So, and this would have 2 trucks showing up, and the idea this will be good because then we're anticipating more volunteers showing up and not having to get their own truck.
That's exactly right. If you have the EMS bringing a unit, you have the firefighter from Crawfordville bringing a unit, the firefighter from MedArt bringing a unit. I may not have to go to my station to get a unit because I'll know, doggone, there's 2 engines and an aerial truck there. That's plenty of units. I can go straight to the fire. Most volunteers carry their bunker gear in their personal vehicle, so they could just go straight to the fire rather than going to the station.
Okay.
Is there anything about when the volunteer gets to the fire first, does he have to wait on the paid? What's the policy on that?
does he have to wait on?
Does he have to wait on the paid person to, if the volunteers at the fire, if he goes to the fire, so he can go ahead and go in the house and start fighting the fire?
If you have a certified firefighter one volunteer, he gets there, he can do the same thing that the paid guys can do.
Okay, yeah, the deal is the certified whatever.
Yes, sir, we're getting more certified people.
Okay.
We're really close to putting quite a few more on.
And how many, I know you probably know the number, how many certified volunteers do we have now?
You got me.
We've added 32
Certified?
firefighter ones since the state come in 2009 and said we had to, so there's 32 additional on top of what we did have.
And we have quite a few that are...
There was a few, so
that
I'm
are-
going to say the total number's probably in the 50.
That's excellent.
But-
That's more than I thought. That's really.
But we're very close to
Congratulations.
adding quite a few more.
We are. yeah.
Our firefighter one classes at my station, at their station, are close to adding quite a few
Well
more.
done. That's good. Thank you.
Tim, are these kind of operational decisions ones the fire chief would make? Is that correct? We don't decide to put 2 firefighters out there. I mean, or the chief would bring it to us.
Yeah, I think you would want to defer to his expertise instead of you having to make that decision. But,
Another
I certainly wouldn't want to make that decision.
Question is, do we currently have 2 engines? We have another one just like the one we have in Crawfordville? So we wouldn't need to buy new engines, what I'm trying to get at.
No, sir, the guy in MedArt would use MedArt's engine, or MedArt's aerial truck. No, you wouldn't be adding any fire trucks.
Just moving a guy from here to there.
I think it's a great idea. I don't, what I'm frustrated is that we can't get a fire chief hired. I'm anxious to get that done.
Well, Commissioner, our point was we feel like the fire chief should answer to the county administrator. I would think that you'd want to wait till you have a county administrator.
And I agree, and that's why Heather and I talked about it today, and, she's waiting still for a fire chief so she can work on the contract.
They're doing a good job, those two over there.
I know that, and we know that, but we want a fire chief that can implement these things and start saving us some money maybe and
Okay.
provide some direction for all of y'all. I'm encouraged by everything I've heard tonight, especially that y'all are now all under Wakulla members, and that...
Commissioner, we've had like 3 things that we got unanimous votes on, which is just absolutely amazing.
It is.
I know it is. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, I agree. I think that having the paid staff now meeting with you all as part of Wakulla is great. What else do you think needs to be done to make sure that there's good communication and collaboration between the volunteer chiefs and volunteer firefighters and our paid people, other than that?
The fact that we have chiefs meetings that are well attended, we have Wakulla meetings where paid people are showing up to speak, things will get better.
Okay, and then you said you want to make sure that your opinion is sought and considered in the future.
Not mine, Wakulla.
I understand.
Yes, ma'am, okay.
Your collective,
Okay.
your opinion is sought. So how do we help ensure that?
Well, actually, we've presented most of our concerns right here tonight, and it's only been maybe a year ago that you, as a board, listened to us before. So,
If you had a good fire chief, I think, that's going to be your leader.
a strong fire chief that I think that's where we need to be going, and he needs to be a department head himself.
Or she.
I'm sorry.
Said, or she, we don't want to offend.
Hey, I'm sorry, yes, sir. He or she does need to be that. We have a she chief right here.
Is there
By the way, at your commission meeting, you asked Chief Brazier and Chief Johnson if they would bring something back. It was voted that Wakulla president would bring it back for them. Not that you can't talk, did you? Okay.
Somebody has come a long way, because a year ago when I was out talking to people, nobody wanted to talk to anybody. The paid didn't like the volunteer didn't like the paid. I'm telling you, that's what I heard. And now you're saying you're all together, and so you've come a long way.
We've come a long way,
Come a long
and it's
way.
for the citizens' good.
I tell you what, the citizens, what you brought here tonight, some of it, the citizens are going to like you not driving so many trucks around the county. That's all I hear is what's a fire truck doing at the restaurant? What's a fire truck doing at whatever? So and what's 6 fire trucks doing at a motorcycle accident? Those are things that you can make a difference in the way the citizens look at your department.
Well, your professional staff is young. And I think that they will get better and better, and I think that this fire advisory board helping make policy would help some of the concerns you're talking about. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anybody here, and I'm looking at Chief Kendall in particular, but anybody here who sees any downside to having the 2 paid people split between the 2 stations? I just want to know if there's a downside.
Well, Medart's not set up to live in. That station there is not a livable station. So in order to do that, there would still have to be the cooperation with EMS. EMS does have a bedroom and a bed and that sort of stuff, and there is a station there.
Right.
So we have to have that agreement, so it's not something that could happen tomorrow.
That's why we say cooperation. They would have to live in the ambulance station, that firefighter that one.
Functionally, no, ma'am. There's really no drawback.
Where are we with the new station, the repair of Crawfield Station?
And I want to just encourage people to speak into the mic. They're videotaping our meetings.
Okay, and we also had another hand go up.
They haven't broke ground yet on Station 8. We've, I think we're at the 90% plans. They've made the decisions that were necessarily to be made. They run into a couple of snags. They had to back up, but we're basically back at 90% plans. So we should be breaking ground, I would say, within the month and a half. So
We're in the building department phase.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd just like to say the
Come on up to the mics.
firefighters have always been taught to have the buddy system. There's always 2 firefighters, and just when you go down to 1, it makes me a little bit nervous to have one separated.
Okay.
Commissioner, I have a question, just if I could. Chief, you said you could save $125,000 by doing that. Can you, because, I mean, that sounds like a good idea to me, so.
Well, that was
Can you
just,
outline that for me, or
I'm sorry.
can you just outline that for me, how we could do that? Because I'd be,
It was strictly the Department of Public Safety Director position and the one of the 2 admin people at Tri-Lane's position. And, I mean, you're saving money by losing jobs, but that's the way that's the only thing we saw, because we had already taken that 40% cut before. I know you don't like the word cut, but your other budgets got cut so that you made room for the fire salaries.
Okay. Tell you what, my position is on this is that, you know, we asked the sheriff to look at his. I think we should look at combining EMS and fire. And I talked to Tim about this earlier. Fire chief reports to administrator, EMS director reports to administrator. There's no middleman. That's the way it used to be. I think it could work fine like that. And then have one assessment for both, whatever it needs to be. My feeling is going to be about $200 a year or less, somewhere around there, but everybody pays it. We could drop our millage rate down another mill if we got ambulance underneath an MSBU.
I think our attorney just said it would have to be 2 separate assessments.
Whatever. $100 a piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I agree with you. I think that's the way we should go. I like this proposal. I think it's worth looking at very hard, and we're doing that. We already are doing that.
Just as we're talking, I just want to make sure everyone realizes, because I've been advocating for diversification of revenue for a long time. Right now, you have a lot of people in Wakulla County who don't pay very much money in property taxes because of the way of having their homes homesteaded and things. Some of these people actually will have problems as we talk about increasing, because we're talking about having a minimum solid waste fee of $112. And then we're talking about raising this up and the other one raising up. To just anticipate, unlike the CST, Communication Services Tax, and the Public Service Tax, which will be increases on small bills, which will be easier to bear. We're talking about, the only hesitation I have is talking about making people's bills go from very little to increase by a minimum of $300 up to $400.
Now, bear in mind, though, like the solid waste assessment, there are provisions for people that can't afford it. If you can't afford it, you can get it waived. So the people that can afford it would be the ones paying it. If you got grandma who's living on fixed income, doesn't have any money, grandma wouldn't pay it.
As long as we're making sure we're including that, sounds great to me.
I wouldn't support it if we didn't do that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to double check.
I'd like to hear maybe from Scott and Fran a little bit.
I think they did a marvelous job.
Me too.
I'm full support of their, I mean, of course, other than dragging me in the parking lot and shooting me in the head, I think that the recommendations are solid and absolutely worth researching, but I don't have anything more than that.
Okay, I mean, I think this has been an outstanding workshop. There's been a lot of thought and preparation that y'all have put into it. I think what you've brought to us are wonderful ideas, building on things that have been already going on in some, to some extent. But I guess I'm just.
Come on up here if you're going to talk, friend, so we can get it recorded.
Do we really need a pass around? Microphone, you can pass around.
And we have to have somebody running back and forth passing around.
You need a thing over on that side of the room, too. I just wanted to point out that some of the stuff that's on there is already happening. We already do have the paid fire or whoever going out and EMS, whoever going to meet them and picking up the ambulance. We already do have some of the people that are paid fire that pick up the ambulance sometimes and go with it to the scene. I also wanted to point out that somehow this kind of looks like there's not a cooperative effort, but I think there is a cooperative effort between these two agencies. One of them is in the grant funding. There's not a whole lot you can do with the AFG grants. It's just for the EMS until this year. Now they have a separate section for EMS. But under the EMS grants, we have a lot of things that have been done for the sheriff as well as the fire department. And I do want to give you an assurance that from all the scenes that I have gone to, there is not a problem in cooperation down at that scene with the people. All of the everythings go away in all three agencies to try to do what's best for the citizens. I just want to let you know some of it's already in place.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else desire to?
Anybody who's a paid firefighter knows here that sometimes there's days that there's no paid fire here because we have that many EMS calls and they're tied up with us. And we do have the volunteer department that saves us. And if we're looking at increasing the MSBU, Randy, you just said $100 and $100 for EMS. I'd sure like to see a way where we could work it out to where maybe we could hire 6 more firefighters and get us where we need to be. So if one of them's pulled out on an EMS call, to back up and add to be a 4th truck, that the county's not without paid fire coverage as well. Those guys work hard and they go a long distance over a short amount of time, and there's times when Sop Choppy has absolutely nothing for fire coverage. So that's an excellent idea to have people in Medart and have people in Crawfordville, and I'd sure like to see them doubled up though. I'd like them to have, if they're going to make that, if somebody's in the house, I know everybody at this fire department, and there's not a single person in this fire department that's going to pay attention to the rules and wait for more people to get there before they go in to grab somebody. That's fact, and there's nothing you can do about that. I know every one of them personally, and I would be flabbergasted if I heard that one of them did. They're not going to do it, and I'd sure like to see them doubled up. And that's the only thing I have to add. I think for a nominal amount more than, for what it would cost for 6 more people in salaries, I'd like to see it.
We can't get well in 1 year, guys.
I know.
Kurt, broached that the best way I've heard is, we get to the basics and then we creep it up every year, but we can. And it's like sticker shock. So.
I wanted to mention about the 2-in-2 route. It is in state statute. It is in administrative code. It is all that. There is the exception to the rule. They actually left as a back door, so to speak. And the back door is if there is a life safety issue. So if we can affect a life save, then we can omit that rule. So don't think we're running out there we're just not following the rules, because we're not. But we have to basically the reality is we're going to have to prove that to somebody. Somebody's going to come and ask us after the fire, why were you in there? And we have to say, because Grandma was on the second floor balcony.
If my house is on fire and I'm in there, I want you to come get me. I don't care if anybody with you or not, come get me.
You're not going to leave a screaming baby in the crib because there's not 2 in and 2 out.
We're coming no matter what the vote is by this board.
And that's why I asked the question, was just to make sure we weren't setting ourselves up a policy where we were intentionally setting ourselves up not to work. The answer was adequate. Thank y'all.
Come on up, sir.
And I do, as this gentleman's walking up, I do, and I know all of us up here, we all thank everybody, EMS, fire, volunteer, paid. You guys help us serve the county in such a way, and you save us a lot of money. Y'all all been working hard on that, and we really appreciate it. I know everybody up here agrees.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
How y'all doing today?
Good.
We have done it. We have gone in and got people out of houses by ourselves. One thing I want to throw at you, even having the EMS crew, they don't count. They have to be people, what it's for is it's called RIC. 2 in, 2 out. They got to be able to come get one of the people that go down. So they have to have their air pack on. The consolidation y'all are talking about, it'll be a great thing, I believe, because it's going to, it's going to give the EMS staff that want to go fire, you're going to have to pay them a little more probably. Just to let y'all know, we can train them right here. We have certified instructors that can meet all state requirements. We've taught EMT classes. We can take, which all of our firefighters are EMT, but we can move to this level to look at this. So it's not something that's thrown out, because this guy isn't certified. So. And we need to build these fire services back. This used to be a great group of people. I've been doing it for 20 years, and we need to come up with a strong fire chief to run it. And you got to pay the man. That's one thing I'm going to say. You ain't going to get a $40,000 man to come in here and run this fire department. Y'all got to look at that because he's going to have his hands.
I agree. And I think we need to do it sooner than later, but hopefully we'll get there soon. Okay, any more? Louis?
Sorry, I'll make it really short. I concur with Mr. O'Grady. It's going to be difficult, I think, to get a strong fire chief for the pay, but I have 2 favors to ask the commission. Last year, when the MSBU was set, I don't think there was 10 people that came and spoke out of 28,000 citizens in this county that said they wanted the MSBU lowered, and it sounds like y'all are on the path to raise it this year, and I really felt last year we shouldn't have gone the route we went. I think it's really put us in a bad spot. So I just ask of you to please really consider it. I also ask, with all due respect to the sheriff and his officers and staff that have done their study, when y'all see it and you see projected savings, that you consider the hundreds of years of experience sitting right over here that have presented the savings that they think we can do. It may be, I don't know how to word it right, but this is accurate. These are real savings that can be attained, whereas there might be something shown that when it comes down to it, we can't meet those savings. So that's all I have.
Well, we certainly would be interested in your review and your critique or comments about any other studies that we see.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, anybody else? Thank all of you very much, and we appreciate your service to the county.
Thank you. Thank you very much.